Hey everyone, it's Carrie Ann Kaiser, and I'm going to be your teacher for Motion 1. This is our very first principles lecture. You can download this presentation at a link in the description, and so if you want to access some of these clips that I'm going to be showing you, be sure to go ahead and download that so you can click on them and look at them on your own time. So let's get started. Before we jump into defining motion graphics, I thought it would be fun to start with Inigo Landari's Italian graphic design for spaghetti westerns. So let's watch a little bit of that. All right, so if you didn't recognize that, it is the opening for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So Inigo Landari's Italian graphic designer and animator, known for his iconic title sequences for spaghetti westerns, things like A Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He worked mainly in the 1960s, and he was known for his groundbreaking use of typography. So he used a lot of stylized silhouettes like you see in this animation here, and his unforgettable were underscored by Ennio Morricone scores. So Morricone is famous for that particular piece of music. He's using high contrast and raw, rough textures and minimal execution to convey the mood of this film. And that's what we do in motion graphics. So motion graphics really is a communication medium that blends graphic design, animation, filmmaking techniques to communicate messages visually through movement. So we will be taking a look at a lot of historical examples, but these are still really good references for where motion graphics began. So I thought a good place to start would be in the 1960s. These are some examples by Saul and Elaine Bass. This differs from traditional graphic design because it operates on a time-based medium, adding the complexity of timing. Motion enhances storytelling by providing both visual and emotional context. Let's take a look at some of Saul and Elaine Bass's work. So Saul and Elaine Bass were a legendary team in title sequence history. They did their breakout work with Man with the Golden Arm in 1955, using jagged cutout styles to symbolize drug addiction. This was groundbreaking. Before that, film often just showed static text at the beginning of a film. So you might say that they helped create what we know as the title sequence. Other notable titles in this collection of videos are North by Northwest, Psycho, Vertigo, and Anatomy of a Murder. Elaine Bass sort of worked behind the scenes as Saul's collaborator, and her role is often downplayed in history books, but we don't like that here. So she definitely played a role in communicating the storytelling and aesthetics of these pieces. She had significant hand in, especially in the later title sequences. Some of her collaborations include Spartacus, you saw Cape Fear and Casino in there. Their signature style was really about dynamic motion and symbolic energy. Their work inspired countless designs after the fact. For instance, Mad Men, a title sequence that we may be watching a little bit later on in the course, was inspired by Saw and Elaine Bass because it suited the era. This title sequence for Boardwalk Empire, its symbolism is it's about the illegal alcohol trade. If you don't know anything about the series, we've got a lone figure standing in front of the ocean. We've got stormy weather shifting an ominous sky. And the sequence is shot with a surreal, dreamlike quality, kind of blending realism with stylized effects. And the slow motion tracking shots make this figure's presence feel larger than life, since his role is basically a kingpin. The music, Straight Up and Down by Brian Joneson, instead of using the period pieces that you might expect from this time period, Boardwalk Empire takes a bold approach in a modern psych rock track for the background of this. The title sequence became iconic for its elegant simplicity, blending realism with symbolism. So we've got this kingpin, we've got the corruption rising up from the water in the form of these alcohol bottles, and we're communicating with our audience here that yes, it is a period drama, but it's a very modernized interpretation, which really conveys the feel of the series, I think. So as motion designers, we're trying to facilitate the connections between the viewer and the content. In this 1980s example, Nina Saxton is walking us through basically the steps of Doc's wake-up machine. So we've got coffee, we've got what looks to be like it's feeding the dog, and obviously this fellow hasn't been here in a little while. And Marty, being the teenager that he is really most concerned about making the most loud sound that he can from his guitar, which definitely sounds like something a teenage boy would do. So we've set up both characters in a really fun and interesting way without us ever even really getting to meet them both. If you want to watch this title sequence, now would be a good time to click on that link and do so. Motion is designed for time. Motion operates under a time-based medium, requiring the consideration of how elements move, transform, and interact over time. In this last of a sequence, you can see the virus, or in this case, the cordyceps mushrooms, basically spreading throughout the world, and that's what we're watching grow, until at the very end, we get a shot of two little mushrooms standing next to one another who represent the two main characters. It's both a beautiful interpretation of the story and creates some mystery around this narrative. So now would be a good time to pause and watch this video. So as we can see in that video, we're building up tension up until the end. So the timing and the pacing of this is really important as we're driving basically the mycelium through each scene. So we're actually watching these mushrooms sort of taking over everything. This was created by Elastic Creative with the creative director Nadia Zone. So she actually has her own page on Art of the Title if you would like to take a look at some more of her work. On the darker side here, we have the introduction to Pearl. This shows a good collaboration between a filmmaker and a musician and a typographer. So this interesting juxtaposition that they're making of this very idyllic, beautiful scenery with a rather sordid story set in it is stark and recognizable from the very beginning. And if you're familiar at all with Pearl, you'll see that it does, in fact, fit the series quite well. A sweet farm girl, but at the same time with rather murderous tendencies. So here we have the animated sequence for Man Seeking Woman by Digital Kitchen. Now, even if you're not familiar with the series, you know the treacheries of dating and online dating and how strange everything is when you're trying to find someone to be with. And I think that the graphics in this communicate that awkwardness quite well. So take a little time to appreciate all of the little pieces of this animation and how many of them there are. And it's kind of dizzying, really, the amount of work everyone has put into this sequence. I thought I would show you a fun and funny collaboration between one of my favorite motion graphic teachers and his students. This is a dance rave that they put together. Everyone got to design a character, and everyone got to design part of this motion graphic sequence. And we have a bunch of animals raving. I just love the way that this is constructed and put together. The timing is so good, and each creature has its own unique motion to it. So I would encourage you to go and watch this little link. It's a hilarious collaboration. So one of the most important things about motion design is effective communication, and that's why I really want to emphasize the fact that you guys need to make storyboards. You absolutely have to create storyboards to produce polished results. That way you can get feedback on them beforehand when you're working through and trying to find the animation solve to that final product. This is from The Importance of Storyboard and 2B Animation by Fever, and it is a wonderful resource. Go and watch it. This example is from Motion Graphics Design Process, How to Create a Storyboard by Melanote. And there are many different programs that you can create storyboards in. Melanote just allows you to drag and drop them around. I actually use Figma for mine, but motion designers integrate from various styles into graphic design, film, and animation. And you really need to figure out what it is you have to make in order to communicate your message effectively. And the easiest way to do that is sitting down and having a conversation with either your cinematographer or, I guess, with yourself if you're working on an individual project, and saying, okay, how do I visually need to say what I need to say? Let's take a moment to discuss the importance of concept. So a strong story concept is the foundation of any successful motion graphic project, and the concept development defines the tone, style, and goals, ensuring the elements of all serve the narrative. This title sequence for Catch Me If You Can was put together by Nexus Productions and Atadog Creatives. I think the creative directors were Oliver Kunsel and Florence Degas. This whole title sequence is supposed to look like it's been printed. So we're borrowing stamp textures, and the entire thing is animated in 1960s style flat animation, and it walks you through basically all of the different personalities that this con artist who convinced everyone that he was a French language teacher, that he was a pilot, that he was a lawyer, that he was a doctor, such a clever guy. You basically get to walk through all of those different lives that he had in the film. So give this one a watch. It is incredible. I love this title design. Now on to something that is definitely a lot less serious in tone. This is one of those dream projects that was made between an artist and a musician that basically found each other, animated by a single person, which I find incredibly impressive, named Jarrett Heather. This is the animated video for the Weird Al Yankovic track Word Crimes. And we are flipping through so many bits of school nostalgia here. We have chalkboards, we have a paper that's being graded, and it's essentially a social critique, this song, and how badly people tend to write online. I find it really rather hilarious, and I encourage you to take a look at it. These next couple of slides have to do with Gestalt principles. If you would like to review them, please do so. Just remember that all of those things that you learned in art school, they still apply here. So proximity, similarity, continuity, closure, figure ground, all of these things have to do with the symbology of imagery, and you really still need those weapons for motion graphics. For some reason, when people come into motion graphics class, it's like all of the graphic design principles that they learn just leave their head. You still need those. I know that we're not working like this or in a little square, we're mostly working like that, but I promise you, you can still apply those things in a long format. And so I'm not going to go over the next couple of slides, but read over them if you would like to. Okay, everyone, so that wraps our Chapter 1, Introduction Motion Design lecture. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, please reach out to me. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's down here in the description link, so I would encourage you to download it. That way you can watch some of those clips that we were talking about on your own time. So bye for now, and see you next time.